On October 23, 2025, the Trump administration announced what it called the biggest deal ever, a $550 billion investment pledge from Japan. The sum was staggering, over 10% of Japan's economy, meant to boost American infrastructure, technology, and energy. The White House celebrated, touting it as a win for American workers and a triumph of America First policy. But beneath the headlines, the deal was a rushed handshake, not a carefully negotiated treaty. In Tokyo, officials were uneasy. The announcement sparked concern, not just excitement. The deal also slashed tariffs on Japanese cars to 15%, angering Detroit automakers and unions who feared job losses. Even as the administration claimed victory, the trade-offs were already creating new problems at home. The grand announcement was just the start of a much more complicated and contentious story. What looked like a historic partnership was about to face serious challenges. The details revealed a startling reality. Japan's $550 billion wasn't private investment, but public money, drawn from the savings of the Japanese people. The U.S. Commerce Department, not Japan, would control the funds through a new office, the United States Investment Accelerator. Japan's role, largely symbolic. A consultation committee could object, but the U.S. could override and reimpose tariffs. The arrangement bypassed Congress and gave the U.S. executive branch near-total authority over another nation's wealth. Experts called it unprecedented, less a partnership, more a directive. Japan was left with little say, under threat of economic punishment if it resisted. International observers were stunned by the imbalance. The deal created a foreign money slush fund for the White House, sparking controversy and setting the stage for resistance. The promise of cooperation masked a power play. Japan's skepticism was about to turn into action. In Japan, the deal was met with alarm. Public outcry and business skepticism quickly followed. Takaichi Sanai became prime minister, vowing to renegotiate the agreement. Rather than confront the U.S. directly, Japan chose quiet resistance, delaying, asking questions, and avoiding commitments. Major corporations withheld support, fearing U.S. political control and financial risk. The business community stayed silent, wary of investing in a plan dictated by American priorities. The result? The deal stalled. No money flowed. No projects began. Japan's government managed the standoff carefully, signaling doubts without breaking the agreement. It was a high-stakes waiting game, hoping the deal would collapse under its own flaws. The U.S. had a signed memorandum, but nothing more. The mega deal was stuck in limbo. Japan's passive resistance was proving remarkably effective. The Alaska LNG export facility became the first test, a $44 billion project long shunned by private investors. The Trump administration pressured Japan to fund it, calling it a top priority. Japanese companies balked, seeing it as commercially unviable and politically risky. They feared a change in U.S. leadership could leave them with massive losses. Instead of real investment, Japanese firms offered only symbolic gestures, letters of intent, but no cash. This allowed them to appear cooperative while avoiding real risk. The standoff over Alaska LNG exposed the deal's core flaw. The U.S. wanted political wins, Japan demanded economic sense. Even with threats and signatures, forcing a nation to make bad investments proved nearly impossible. Japan's resistance was part of a broader Asian pushback against U.S. economic pressure. South Korea faced similar demands for a $350 billion investment, but pushed back, citing economic harm. Seoul refused to let its public funds be controlled by Washington. Taiwan, too, rejected U.S. demands to move semiconductor production stateside, even under heavy tariffs. For these nations, economic sovereignty outweighed U.S. threats. Quiet delays, direct refusals, and informal coordination signaled a new reality. America's allies were no longer willing to accept one-sided deals. The era of U.S. dominance in Asia was being challenged. Allies were finding ways to say no, together. The U.S. faced a region increasingly unwilling to be coerced. The balance of power was shifting. The Trump administration's main tool was the threat of high tariffs, a blunt instrument to force deals. The Japan agreement made clear failed to comply and tariffs would return. This tariff hammer could produce quick headlines, but at a cost. Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan began to call the administration's bluff, calculating that long-term sovereignty mattered more than short-term pain. The threat of tariffs created instability and eroded trust. Allies began to see the U.S. as unpredictable and transactional. The more Washington relied on threats, the more it risked losing influence. True alliances require respect, not intimidation. The tariff hammer could break more than just trade barriers. It could break partnerships. America's power of persuasion was facing real limits. From the start, experts doubted the $550 billion deal would ever materialize. The idea of one democracy handing over its public funds to another was unprecedented and unsustainable. Japan's stalling tactics halted the deal's momentum without open conflict. Each week without progress made collapse more likely. The White House had a signature, but no substance. The episode strained U.S.-Asia relationships, built over decades on trust and mutual benefit. If America is seen as unreliable, its influence will wane. The megadeal's failure is a lesson true partnership requires respect for sovereignty and real negotiation. The future of U.S.-Asia relations depends on whether Washington can adapt or risk seeing its influence fade.